We are here for changes. Good afternoon. This is Leanne from Youth for Change, and today I'm presenting a carbon dividend act for the Taiwan. So first, I'll briefly introduce why did we came up with this proposal, then what our proposal is, some approaches to this plan, and lastly, what we have done to this plan. So here's the plan our government has for carbon emission. Taiwan's pathway to net zero emissions in 2050. So basically, the government is trying to charge businesses that produce more than 25,000 tons of carbon emission with a certain amount of fee. Then the money collected will be used by central and local government to help reduce other carbon emissions. This plan, however, has a flaw. That is, big companies will further benefit from this plan, while smaller companies and families with lower income will suffer. Okay, why is that? First off, the money collected from this plan will be used to subsidize corporations that is able to invest in low carbon technology. That said, big companies who apparently have far more resources and money and ability to invest in this technology will eventually get more and more money back from this plan. On the other hand, smaller companies do not have the ability to do so. Moreover, as fossil fuels and carbon-intensive products will become more and more expensive under this act, smaller companies and families with lower income will suffer. That is because they will not be able to afford these products in the future as these things become more and more expensive. Lastly, this plan requires everyone to pay the same amount of money despite the huge gap between the carbon emissions everyone produces. As you can see in the chart, the blue part represents the top 10% of the population in terms of wealth. And apparently, they alone took up more than 2/3 of the total amount of carbon emission. That, again, highlights how much significant the carbon emission gap actually is. And because of that flaw, we came up with this proposal. It's Carbon Dividend Act. So the way it works is that the government will also charge companies with a certain amount of money per ton of carbon emission they produce. Then, as the price of fossil fuels and carbon-intensive products increase, these companies are therefore encouraged to come up with a cleaner energy solution. Then, all of the money collected from this plan will be distributed back to the citizens of the voting age progressively. That means families with lower income will receive more dividends from this act and vice versa. Lastly, a carbon adjustment border will be implemented to protect the Taiwanese industry as well. And there are several benefits that come along. First off, household disposable income will increase because of this plan, and as I stated, families with lower income will benefit the most from this plan. And that apparently will help reduce the income inequality issue. Moreover, currently there are 350,000 lives lost in the United States because of air pollution. But if this plan were to be implemented, then 4.5 million lives is going to be saved in the next 50 years. From these numbers, we can infer that the same will also happen in Taiwan, but only with a smaller number because of the population difference. Also, since this policy makes fossil fuels a lot more expensive, these companies are encouraged to come up with a cleaner energy solution. That said, these renewable energy will become more ample and more affordable in the future, which again strengthens the whole process and our goals. Lastly, this plan also boosts the economy since it creates more jobs relating to this clean energy source industry. And here's our plan. So our short-term plan will take place on January 2023, where businesses will start to be charged with 600 NTD per ton of carbon emission they produce. And these fees will be collected at the end of each month. Meanwhile, the government will also continue to educate the public on what the policy is and also what benefits comes along to help them fully adapt and understand the policy. Then our midterm plan will take place on 2023 to 2024, where a general consensus will be conducted to help us identify and solve any potential threats to this policy. Also, the government will keep observing how these businesses are adapting to this plan and come up with a new pricing model for next year. Lastly, the government will also keep educating on the public to help them fully understand the policy. So last we have our long-term plan, which will take place from 2024 to 2026. So by this time, the pricing model has been changed thrice, and companies have already been transitioning into using cleaner energy source. In the meantime, the government will continue to garner more support from the public for the completion of the whole process. And theoretically, there wouldn't be any increase in government's revenue, nor would there be any additional expense for the citizens. However, some may argue that there would be inflation because of this policy. However, since all of the money are distributed back to the citizens, there would not be any substantial impact on the economy overall. What is for sure is that billions of dollars is going to be injected into the economy and create real disposable income. In fact, an average citizen of the voting age will receive about $40,000 per year because of this plan, and that apparently will financially support them with this dividend, especially for those of lower income families. And now here are some approaches that we and the government can do to help impose the plan. So as we mentioned in our proposal, we plan to persuade the National Development Council, which is the policy planning agency, to support our plan through lobbying. And there are a lot of ways to do that. First off, rallying and written communication. For rallying, we can either sit in protests, marches, and even student strikes. For written communication, we can just email the government official or even start a petition. Social media can also be a really efficient platform for us, since most of the people are more used to consuming information online nowadays. Also, we can contact non-governmental organizations that is related to this topic, as they generally have more power, more influence, and more resources to help make these changes on a bigger scale. For example, Taiwan Environmental Protection Union and Taiwan Youth Climate Coalition are two of the organizations that we plan to work with. Because, as for TEPU, it focuses on an array of environmental issues, which obviously include carbon emission. They also frequently hold a lot of events to help engage the public on the policy they're promoting. For example, they just had a panel discussion on this carbon emission topic, and other events include citizen cafe, educational forums, panel discussion, marches, and even exhibitions. As for the TYCC, the reason why we want to work with them is that the organization involves groups of people that is close to our age, and their values align with ours. Also, they will send representatives to Conference of Parties every year, and that Conference of Parties is the decision-making body that is responsible for reviewing and monitoring United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Also, that group of people have already done research on this topic, and they have also voiced their opinion on this topic too. As for the government, holding a forum would be a good way to promote this plan. Since a forum engages people together and discuss a topic, it again reinforces the concept of the policy and again enable them to exchange their ideas. As for our President Tsai Ing-wen, she can follow the footsteps of Joe Biden, who just collaborated with a lot of celebrities. And the reason why for that is that celebrities already have a large fan base and have a big platform. So that means that their voice is a lot easier to be heard. And that will again help us to spread our message and the importance of this policy. Engaging citizens with social media is also really important too. For example, the National Development Council they have a lot of followers on their Facebook page, and if they use it correctly, then our policy can be reached out to a lot of people efficiently. And other approaches include panel discussion, polls that help us understand the public's opinion, websites that include a lot of important information about this policy, public hearings, educational programs, and government crowdsourcing. And let's take a look at what we have done to this point. Let's play the video.
Next, we are going to look at how we have taken action in order to raise awareness. This will be divided into 3 parts: our Facebook page, our poll, and our Google form. First, our Facebook page. The reason why we chose Facebook is because our target audience, which is people of the voting age with stable jobs, use Facebook more often. We currently have 152 members in the community we created, and this platform is used to spread awareness on the subject and also better understand other people's views. Here are some of the things we posted. First, we stated who we are, which school we are from, and what competition we're participating in. We also stated what we plan on achieving with this platform. Next, we shared the video we had made in the past for this same competition, for people to better understand what we are doing. Now this post is about the carbon dividend. Because we want people to understand this plan, we made multiple pictures to better explain them. We also made Mandarin and English versions. The next post was about how we can fight the climate crisis as day-to-day citizens. Because we are not politicians, we are not in the government, there's nothing big that we can do for the climate crisis right now. However, there are many changes that we can do in order to help, and that is what we were trying to convey with this post. The next thing we are going to look at is the poll. So we created a poll asking people whether they would support the carbon dividend plan if the government decided they wanted to implement it. With 20 voters, 90% agreed to support, while 10% disagreed. Everyone who voted was above the voting age and are going to be decision makers in the future. The next thing is our Google form, in which 31 responses.
现在进行评审提问时间。
所以我看起来就是一个针对碳红利的倡议行动，但是实际上的具体行动，除了贴文之外，你们还有再多做更多其他事情。然后还有你们诉求的 TA 是谁？好像在刚刚的简报当中听得不是很清楚。针对这个稍微先说一下。
我是不太知道你要跟谁做主要诉求，然后这个行动里面对于减少这件事情可以有什么样的事？因为看你取房价，就是要跟看到。
For me, it looks like you want to tell the government to allocate the carbon dividend to the right place. That is to help the low-income family, right? That is your main thing. But the problem is, why that is the best way to allocate the carbon dividend? You know, the carbon dividend can be used in many good places. For example, improve the technologies to reduce the carbon emission, right? So there are many good ways to use the carbon dividend. So why we need to associate the carbon dividend and the low-income family support? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, we did plan to mention our target audience in our presentation, but because of the time limit, I wasn't able to bring it up to you, so I'll just explain it right now. So our target audience is the adults aging from 30s to 50s. And the reason why we chose them as our target audience is that these group of people generally have more stable jobs and high social status compared to those like teenagers and people that are younger. So we decided to choose them because they generally have more power and more influence on the society. And also, this is one of the things that we did for this project. So we actually submitted our proposal on this public policy participation online platform. And the way it works is that once I submit my proposal on it, if someone sees it and they agree with me, they will vote on it. And if a proposal receives more than 5,000 votes, then the National Development Council will officially take it as its policy. Also, the problem regarding why did we choose the low-income family as part of our target is that a lot of people worry that having such like carbon dividend act will result in inflation. That is, they worry that if we impose this policy, then a lot of carbon-intensive products will be too expensive for them to afford. So that is exactly why we choose to give these money back to the citizens, and especially for those of lower income families, because then that they wouldn't be able, they would not worry as much about this problem since they are actually having money back from this plan. And that is the reason why we choose this, because we want to mitigate the effect of inflation. And is there any other problem?
我觉得从头到尾有一个点没有讲到，就是说你们自己的优势是什么？就是为什么你们要挑战这一件事情？就是我听起来好像就是因为这是一个活动，这是一个 social design 的比赛，所以你们找了一个题目来做。但是在这个题目做的过程当中，我没有听到为什么是你们有这个适合来做这件事情，或者是你们的优势是什么？所以你如果有答案的话，我很乐意听，就是你觉得为什么会是你们适合来做这件事情。
Okay, so as I said in my presentation, people nowadays are more used to consuming information online, right? So since we are teenagers who is probably more used to using social media and all these online platforms, we would say that we do have this advantage than other groups of people since we know better, we generally know better about these kind of online platforms than they do. And we are also more used to using them than they do. And also the reason why we chose this is because on about like April, we saw a news about over 1,000 scientists protesting on the street abroad because of this carbon emission issue. And they were protesting and telling people that this issue is so urgent, but like people are ignoring them and pretending that it's not that urgent. So since we saw that news, we just decided that we, as a part of this inhabitant of Earth, we have the obligation to tell people how urgent this is, and we have the obligation to do some action.
Okay, I think you explained why you do this, and you just saw the issue, right? And I think you highlight a very important thing we usually ignore. That is, the low-income family usually will suffer in such the global carbon emission issue, right? So they are losers, and the government should do something to help these losers. But the next question is, how will you help them, right? Do you directly subsidize this low-income family, or you give them other ways to let their life better, or other ways you can let them adapt to the new low-carbon environment? So what's exactly the ways you want to help them to become better?
Okay, so I'm sorry if I didn't make it clear in my presentation, but the way we do it is that we will allocate these money directly into their bank account, and they, as a result, can just receive those dividends from this act. But you might be wondering, okay, why are we doing this? Why are we emphasizing this point in this presentation? And that is because if people are satisfied by having these kind of money, because the effect of inflation is mitigated by these dividends, right? So if they're more satisfied about this plan, then there wouldn't be as much of people against this policy. So this policy will be a lot easier to be physically implemented.
我觉得我刚刚的问题我没有被回答到。我的意思不是说你们因为年轻适合用这个东西，我的意思说你们这个团队本身 ，not as a group of young people who can use social media. Everybody can use social media. Every young generation can use social media. But why you guys is suitable for this project?
Okay, so 3 of us from this team, we're actually from the same class, and we're from the international class of Vega High School. So since we are the international class, we do think that we have more access to these kind of international news and international websites or platforms when compared to people that are maybe not as capable of reading these kind of stuff in English. And since we are more exposed to these kind of news every day, we do think that we are able to keep updating these kind of news and update our knowledge upon these kind of topics. So that is why we are probably more advantaged on this topic.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.